In this video today, we're going to talk about how you recession-proof your church or ministry during challenging times and grow. I'm excited to get into this topic here today, but first, if you don't know us, I'm Clint with Pro Media Fire. Our mission is helping those that do good do more. We accelerate and help churches, nonprofits, and businesses through creative and digital strategies, and we help them grow. That's what we do. So today, let's kind of jump in, and as we talk specifically here in the area of churches, ministries, my heart, as a young man, I grew up, and my parents, they started 2 churches. So I saw the same parents starting 2 churches. That's right, I'm a PK. So number one, I'm a PK if you hear that, and you kind of know my wife is too. So we do have a heart for churches and ministries, and we get it. We know the challenges. We know what it takes. Seeing the behind the scenes growing up in a family like that. But I remember seeing my parents. I remember seeing my mom and dad, and the same dad have one church that he planted from the very beginning, and it exploded in growth and just took off. He then brought in another pastor. That pastor took it over, and the church is successful to this day, and it's still there. Then I saw my same dad start another church, another work, and it began to take off and it began to grow. But then the challenges and the shifts and things that were taking place in the world, some of the shifts in technology, speaking the language of culture, and some of the shifts in the economy, I saw my same father start a successful church, and the next one he closed down. So I've seen those challenges behind the scenes, and it's given me a passion. Our team have a passion. We want to see you thrive and grow. So today, when we talk about how do you grow in challenging times, how do you grow in a recession, how do you recession-proof your ministry and your business, this is vital. Listen closely, because there's some key things that you're going to want to do. Some key things you're going to want to pay attention to. So let's dive in. I'm going to hit the whiteboard a little bit today, and we'll just dive into some of these things as we talk about it. But the first thing is, if you want to recession-proof your ministry and your church, the first thing you need to do is what most of us do is, number one, you're always thinking here, is that you want to protect and look at the things that only you can control. You can't control what takes place in the economy as far as if now that's just less economic activity. And if that takes place, you have no control over that. So focus on the things that you do have control over, and focus on controlling your downside. That's what most of us focus on. How do we cut costs? How do we cut expenses? How do we cut these things? But be careful. Don't get caught up there. You want to cut your expenses. You want to, I know at Pro Media Fire, we have, churches and nonprofits come to us oftentimes because they're like, hey, we had a staff member leave. We had a staff member go. Now, can you do our media? Can you do our website? Can you do our creative services? And we're less the cost than actually hiring a physical staff member. So they bring us on, and then we handle all of it and help them crush it as their creative and digital team. Now, they do that to save money, and they bring us in so they can still thrive. That's protecting your downside. So you want to look at where you can save, what you can do, on that end, but be careful. Don't get stuck here. I don't want to focus all of our time here, because this is what most of us do during times of recession or challenging times when there's less economic activity. What we do want to do here is put the majority of our focus, this is it, number 2 right here, and vital, is on the upside. I want you really to look at the upside. Number 1, control your downside. Make those changes you need to make. Control your expenses. But look at your upside. Put your focus on what is driving growth, because this is what's going to be vital. I noticed during the 2020, we saw, when everything broke out in the midst of the pandemic and all of this was happening, one of the shifts that took place was when that fear hit, there was people that automatically pulled back all of their finances, automatically were like, stop everything, stop all of our spending, and they were focused on the downside. Now, some of that was not bad, but what happened is they didn't focus on the upside. Especially as a ministry, this is like the time. And in the midst of the pandemic, I know our team, we broke out, we were volunteering and helping spread hope and just all across the world with media. And so we jumped in and went for it all out. And we noticed 2 things. We noticed that the churches and ministries that joined with us and that went all in and were like, let's focus on growth, that they grew digitally. They grew in the moment. They began to reach more people than they had ever reached before. But we watch clients that had left or clients that were no longer putting a focus on growth and put all of their focus on the downside. They began to actually continue to decline, where those ministries and churches that said, the harvest fields are ripe, let's reach out, let's go for it. Those were the ones that grew. Those were the ones that took off in the moment. So here is something you want to know. In that moment, during the pandemic in 2020, when that happened, the ad cost came down. It was actually cheaper than it had been in a decade to reach people online, to make an impact. Those that were focused on the upside had more opportunity to impact people, more opportunity to actually reach people. So when we focus on the upside, that's where we focus on the harvest. Like Jesus said, lift up your eyes, look on the harvest, they are ripe for harvest. We want to impact and we want to change lives. That's why we got into ministry. That's why you're here. That's why you're here today. So today, this video, we're talking to pastors, leaders, those in the church, in ministries, in nonprofits. Let's get in once again here. Focus on the upside. Focus on the upside here. And with this, as we're focusing on the upside, that means focus on all of the areas that are driving growth, because there's a cost to decline. To focusing on the downside, you're going to decline. You want to control your downside, but the moment you focus on the upside, that's where there's opportunity. So one of the first things we want to do with growth and making these decisions, and when you're cutting and focusing on upside, is really take right here. Here is your church. Here is your ministry. This is your organization right here. You want to look at number one, what are your growth drivers? Begin to look at what's driving growth. Well, a simple one would be word of mouth. Word of mouth's driving growth. Look at some of do you have Facebook? All right, so Facebook is driving growth. Maybe you've got Instagram. Is that driving some growth for you? You have also too, as far as those that are coming here, you have your website here driving growth. And then there also are so many different areas you can get into and you can look at with your team is that you have here, you may have as far as some print or some advertising in town and some physical here. You can fill in these different areas here. Look at anything that drives growth. What brings people in your doors? Look at that specifically. What are those things? Maybe you have billboards. Maybe you've got other areas that you're putting out. Maybe you're putting out mailers. What are you doing to drive your growth? And if you're doing it right, you want to look at your KPIs. You want to look at specifically what is the impact that those are driving you in your growth. And as you get in and take a look at this, this is where you're going to see specifically what's driving our growth. Let's look at it here, the core of this is driving growth, this is not driving growth. So when I'm cutting in the midst of times where I want to control downside, I'm going to look at one of the things I do not want to do is cut anything that is driving growth. Instead, we want to lean in and focus more on growth. Because as a nonprofit, as a church, when people are hurting in challenging times, it is the best time for you to interrupt them on their phone and say, hey, we're here to pray for you. Hey, we're here to, be there for you. Why don't you come out to this service? Why don't you come out to what we're doing here? This is the time. So we want to be mindful of what is driving our growth. So as we look at this here specifically in our growth, and we're seeing what we have on the side of growth here specifically, now we make decisions accordingly looking at our growth drivers. It's simple formula today in how to recession-proof your church or your ministry. We see here today, all you've got to do is examine what are your growth drivers and invest more money in your growth drivers. What we see in today's world is digital. So we see that digital is driving growth for physical and also for your online. All of it's working together. Digital is the front door. So you're going to want to invest more in this area. So in our next video in the series, we're going to cover some of the digital pathways. We're going to cover, now that you know your growth drivers, now that you know what is driving growth, how do you invest and where do you take them? That's where we get into our 5 Ds of digital engagement, which is design. It is discussion, discovery, discipleship, and deployment. How you take and you grow online. How do you drive growth Where do you take them? And how do you thrive in the midst of challenging times? So we're excited here. We actually do want to let you know we have a growth program going right now. We're working with a cohort, a special team of small pastors, ministry leaders, nonprofits. If you would like to be in the cohort, right down below, go ahead and just fill out. Once again, you can fill out a quick application. The team will reach out and book a call to talk to the team. It is application only. We're only taking in a small group for our growth program, which also includes our outreach. We're doing the social media, man, for you, all those different pieces, helping you out. It's all done with you. So if you'd like to talk to our team, reach out below our growth program. Otherwise, we will see you in the next video. If it's your first time here, don't forget to subscribe, to like, and hey, keep doing good and changing lives. We'll see you on the next one.